Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our webinar, Boosting Insurance Client Acquisition and Retention in the New Digital Economy Using Journey Management, the science of creating the insurance journeys your customers love. I'd like to do a quick introduction. My name is Anthony. I head up product marketing at Incuba, and I am joined and privileged to be joined by Clive. He's the good-looking guy on the left-hand side. Clive, why don't you say hi and give us a quick introduction?
Hi, everybody. I'm Clive Jainerain. I'm a customer experience lead at Mac Consulting, and I've spent at least a decade in short-term insurance, and before that in the motor industry, namely Toyota. And I'm happy to be here today. Let's have fun.
And Clive, he's been quite modest, but he's an insurance industry expert. He's worked with us tirelessly over the last little while, really to pull together a lot of the material that we're excited to be sharing with you today. So a little bit of housekeeping. We are, like many of you, we are in our homes, and we ask you to extend grace if you hear Labradors or children or Hardy-Dars or anything like that. Our cameras are on so that you can see some friendly faces during lockdown. And in terms of the roadmap, how are we going to do this? Clive and I, we're going to be sharing some content and some information over the next short while. We're going to be taking a break at about the halfway mark, an intermission if you like, so that we can do a poll. I want to reach out to you guys and ask you for your opinion on something. I'll then share the results of that, something topical and interesting. And please stick around, because I still obviously need to tell you about how to get hold of the complimentary paper that some of you are quite excited to get your hands on, and also how to end up with the recording and the slides of this particular webinar. So we're going to jump in. We've got quite a lot that we want to get through today. So we are going to jump in. Thank you for your time. We do appreciate you being here. So let's start with this question. Do you already know why your clients are leaving and exactly what you can do to keep them? First, let's look at some environmental things, and these are things that as industry professionals you are probably all aware of. But for instance, that short-term insurance has the third highest cost of acquisition per client of all industries globally, which is quite staggering. Something else that you'll know is it costs 5 to 10 times more to acquire a new insurance customer than to actually retain one. Here's some other global stats. Sorry, I just need to move the little widget around so that I can see it. 84% of people shop around for insurance at the time of renewal. This is a global number. And of those people that have shopped around, that group of people, 47% of them leave. And that is from a study, Consumer Intelligence Global Report of 2018. Here is another report that we found interesting and would like to share with you. It's a report from Bain & Co. And they put together a report on how to keep insurance clients. And I've summarized it into 4 categories here, but largely deliver value in order to generate loyalty, ensure ease of interaction, engage around moments of truth, and digital and human channels, bridging the digital and human channels. Now, I'm not going to dive into a lot of that, but for instance, when they talk about delivering value, value has emotional elements and functional elements, and these things that when they are in line, it results in loyalty soaring. And emotional elements may be things like reduce my anxiety for me. That's an emotional element. A functional element would be something like save me time or keep me updated. Those are some of the functional elements. But let's bring it closer to home now. Something we like to call the retention big 6. These are the top cancellation reasons within South Africa. We've worked with a number of industry experts, Clive included, in order to, and this is not a qualitative study, this is quantitative, and some of these are poor communication, poor service, value of cover, poor supplier workmanship, declined claims, and no cover as expected. You can imagine that there's quite a bit of overlap in some of these categories. So what some clients may call poor communication, others would call poor service, and so on. But these are the top 6 cancellation reasons within South Africa. So where this gets relevant, go for it. It's a funny
thing, Anthony. It's a funny thing because a lot of people, when you look at cancellation reasons, they will look at price. It says People cancel because of price, but in this study, price is third, value of cover. A lot of this is around, like we said before, the moment of truth, or a lot of this is around the service, communication, workmanship.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And what's equally interesting, thanks for that, Clive. Just by the way, everyone, Clive and I, we're going to be interrupting each other continuously through the course of this because we both have so much that we want to say. So let's carry on interrupting each other. What's interesting is that when we map the Bain list, which is how to keep insurance clients, delivering value, generating loyalty, ensuring ease of interaction, when we map that to the top cancellation reasons, we find that they're very easy to map. We'd be mapping something like delivering value to value of cover on the one side, but also mapping it to poor communication. We're not going to do that now because when we map it, we actually end up with a little bit of a spider's web. The point that I want to extract here is that these lists agree, although they're saying it in an opposite manner. But what surfaces is a bunch of themes which are consistent. And the themes are one of, first of all, customer communication with the customer. Let's call it engagement, customer engagement. The importance of the customer profile, so who the customer is, what their context is, what their background is. The importance of the customer's very unique and independent journey, individual journey, and their behavior within that journey. And then obviously the element of value. And these are themes that rise to the surface the moment we look at the Bain report as well as our top cancellation reasons within South Africa. So what we're going to do now, we're going to jump into the top 6. Shall we do that now, Clive?
Yeah, but before you go to the
something
top
you want 6, to say? Yeah.
Yeah. When we look at deliver value, we can see deliver value being mapped to the cancellation reasons. And if we actually want to deliver value or generate loyalty on your left-hand side by Bain's, we actually got to look at the reasons for cancellations and see what we can do at reasons for service, value for cover, workmanship, etc., and see how we can move backwards into deliver value. I think these map out, even though it's a spider web, it map out nicely if one wants to really deliver value for customers.
Fantastic. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to jump into those top 6 cancellation reasons just for a minute or two. And we're going to look at them independently and just look at them and say, okay, so this is the cancellation reason, something like poor communication. What are the root causes that we're aware of in the industry? And if these are root causes that we are actually aware of, why on earth are these things actually still happening? So why don't you take this away for us, Clive?
Okay, thanks, Anthony. The first one we look at is communication. And I think customers, I speak to a lot of customers, I speak to brokers. One thing customers get frustrated about is when organizations treat them as one size fits all. They want to be treated special. When you're sending me a renewal, Anthony, put my name down. My name is Clive Jainerain. Put my name down. Speak to me on my renewal. Don't speak to me as client, Mr. ... Customers want to feel the impact from the organization.
Because you should know me, right?
You should know me. By the way, Anthony, you collect my premiums every month without fail. It's a debit order. It goes through.
Right. Do you want to move on to the next one, Clive?
Yeah. The next one would be poor service. And poor service, it's a tricky one because let's understand from a customer's point of view, from the time I register a claim or I did a quote right throughout my journey with the organization, I see everything as service. So almost insurers are almost on the stage all the time because they're being judged all the time by customers. And the thing is, insurance is unlike manufacturing, whereby you see the vehicle coming down the conveyor belt, a red vehicle with the blue door. The blue door is not supposed to be a blue door on a red vehicle. And so let's change it before the customer sees it. Unfortunately, in insurance, in service industries, the service is poor when the customer tells you. And that's why we're going to be looking one step ahead. What can we do as insurers to make sure that that's visible? We can see the end to end before the customer has to tell us that.
Great.
And then the next one we go to is the value of cover And as I said previously, the value of cover, we normally think that this is the first one because this is where pricing comes in. And this could be a bit technical, lending itself into benchmarks, it's lending itself into pricing, market pricing, and depends on what the customer wants. But actually, this actually can be managed as well. How do we personalize cover? How do we do our onboarding as insurers? Do we tell the client exactly what they're covered for? Take time to onboarding. That we could improve. Let's go to our next.
Let's go.
Yeah, poor workmanship. And this speaks to suppliers. And this is also an interesting one. Because as much as us as insurers think that supply experience is something that we give, a lot of the supply experience is actually something that the service provider delivers on our behalf. And when the plumber is working at somebody's home, the insurer is not there. And then you've got multiple service providers that are trying to fit and piece different processes. A plumber is trying to put the geyser in, and the carpenter is trying to put the cupboards in, and the carpet or the tiler is trying to tile the floor. And all of these pieces got to work together to give a single experience for a customer. And this can be very tricky for the insurer, for the customer, and for the service provider. And how much of time is being used for suppliers to develop suppliers? How much of time does insurers use to develop suppliers or enlighten them about insurance strategy? And there's a key in there. We can try and develop suppliers to deliver that strategy, customer experience strategy. And how do we do that? Let's go to the next, which is...
Because just as we move to the next one, they are our brand representatives, aren't they? They represent the insurance customer. They are where the insurance company touches the client.
The client. I've read an article recently, Anthony, where they don't call suppliers the suppliers anymore. They call them partners in different countries. They call them partners, but actually you're partnering with the person to deliver his vehicle. You're partnering with the car hire. You're partnering with the tow truck. These are all partners to deliver the experience that you designed as the insurer.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, and the next one is decline claims. And this also is a very technical one as to why people leave because of irregular driving, compliance, incidents not covered. Yes, as much as this could be a difficult one, it could also be managed to a certain extent. How are we doing on our onboarding? Sometimes staff that is sitting at the call centers don't really understand the end-to-end. Not even staff, sometimes leadership don't understand the end-to-end. And decline claims is a sensitive thing to customers, and they leave when they feel they're not being heard.
Sure.
Yeah. And lastly, we go to no cover as expected. And this is basically lack of awareness around the specifics of the cover and the requirements of the policyholder. Do we really understand our customers? Do we provide them the cover that they require? A lot of insurers do underwriting at claim stage. That's not where it is. That's not where it used to be. Should be. And underwriting needs to be done up front so that you underwrite what the cover that is expected and not at claim stage. And this no cover gives us a siloed mentality that every area runs in a silo. And at the claim stage, one of the silos may not hand off properly. And we have a bad experience. And then they want to leave.
That's it. I think the key words in there are as expected, right? Because when you're dealing with my expectations are based on what you have told me. So it's really, it's a communication exercise, first and foremost. And it's either effective or not. So these obviously, thanks for that, Clive. These obviously point towards at least, or they hint at solutions, don't they?
Absolutely. In the case of poor communication, what can we do to personalize the journey and understand behaviors in advance proactively? And I'm sure there's a lot that can be done there. For poor service, understand your clients, their journeys, understand their experiences. For value of cover, we can engage more contextual conversations throughout the client's journey. Don't expect the client to know everything. We insurers, we're experts in what we do. They have a claim once in 3 years, once in 2 years. They don't know everything. Help them, guide them. Workmanship. Work with your partners, your suppliers, because they are delivering that service. Anthony, I've just realized recently that a lot of insurers at claim stage are becoming more and more like logistics companies, actually managing estimated time of arrival, estimated time of departures. They are becoming so much more like logistics. It's amazing how these industries are overlapping. Decline claims, proactive engagements, information sharing throughout the journey will help us as insurers. And again, no cover is expected. Focus on the end-to-end journey, and rather than individual steps. Focus on the customer from the time he had a quote and a quote into a policy, to a midterm adjustment, to a renewal, to a retention, to a claim, registering of a claim, right until payment. If we can focus more and more as full journeys instead of silos, I think it'll do a lot more for our industry.
That's great. Thanks, Clive. That's brilliant. Thank you for bringing your years of experience. So we've obviously identified our 6 reasons for cancellation. I just want to give everyone a bit of a roadmap of where we're going. So we're of the view that all of these factors can be addressed and are addressed. We've seen that they are addressed through client journey management. Client journey management is a 5-step process, and I'll take you into those steps in a moment. But in terms of a roadmap, we're going to be looking at the content in 3 sections from here on. First of all, client journey management as a whole, and just a high-level view of that and what it entails. And then we are going to be diving into 3 and 4. So we're going to be diving into client journey insights and journey orchestration. So that's a little bit of a roadmap, and that is where we're going. Before we get there, we just want to share with you perhaps what we have seen in terms of the success of client journey management, and we're going to use this as a little bit of an introduction of Incubo as well, because some of you may not be familiar with the work that we do or have done. But what we have seen is we have seen a 100% increase, up to 100% increase, that's rounded, in acquisition, retention, and conversion achieved with customer journey management. That is what we have seen. Where have we seen this? I'll show you in a moment. Sorry, there's just a little bit of a lag here. Please be patient. We have all threatened our families with horrible things should they use too much of our bandwidth. Our approach, it obviously includes big data. Your customers, your clients are leaving comprehensive data trails behind them all the time as they touch your various channels, your various products and solutions. And we obviously find ourselves in the big data game in order to extract those patterns and those experiences over time. Journey analytics, this is used to discover customer journeys through experiences and channels, and we'll get more into that in a moment. And ultimately optimization, and this is where we launch nudges and interventions informed by machine learning that help customers to at least reach their goals and help us to retain those customers. Where we have done some work, most recently, we actually did one of our first projects with Suncorp Bank, that some of you may be familiar with, in Australia. We've also done some great work and continue to work with FNB, another large bank, a global insurer, and a large telco. And what we have seen in terms of hard results has been 80 to 120% increase in conversion at moments of truth. And in some cases, a 20% increase in NPS, Net Promoter Score. We are very happy to say that according to Gartner's Market Guide for Voice of the Customer Solutions of 2018, we actually achieved a top result globally. So we got the top result globally out of all vendors in the VOC and journey analytics space, and that's an indication of how excited we were when we saw that. And what that means is that we received level 3, which is not what you think it is, level 3, which is top ratings for 3 of the categories, which put us in that top position. Level 3 means something different these days. And we're also happy to say that we are a gold Microsoft partner What this means is that our solution is available within the Microsoft ecosystem. And if you are a business that uses Microsoft, like Microsoft Dynamics or something like that, we should probably have a conversation at some point. All right, so that's just a little bit about us. What I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll now. I really want everyone's input on something. Give me a second while I do that. I'm hoping that a poll is appearing before your eyes. The question is, which one of the following is the greatest obstacle to customer centricity? You may want to select more than one of these, but I'm asking you for the greatest based on your experience and your opinion. They are strategy misalignment, business silos, people and process misalignment, technology and data silos, or perhaps security and compliance concerns. This is in fact a poll that was launched previously by Forrester, commissioned by KPMG. So we didn't dream this up ourselves. And I'm going to give everyone a minute just to complete this, and then I'm going to share the results so you can see what everyone has said. It's obviously anonymous. While some of you are still thinking through the options, for those of you who are quick out of the blocks, I'd also like to mention that within the handouts section of the webinar widget, you will find the handout that was promised, which is available for download, and that is a research paper called Keeping Close to Customers in a Time of Social Distancing. Please go and grab that now. Right, I'm going to give you guys another 10 seconds. Then I'll tell you what was said. Great, thank you. Thank you to the 70% of you who voted. Here's what I can tell you. 17% of you selected strategy misalignment. 19% said business silos. Almost half of you, 44%, said people and process misalignment. 17% said technology and data silos. And a small group of you, just 3%, said security and compliance concerns. I'm closing that poll now. I am hoping that you are. I'm hoping that you are back to the PowerPoint. Great. I think we're good. So how do we solve for retention in insurance? Let's press forward. Just a summary of where we're going. We are talking about client journey management, as well as then diving into two of the categories, which is client journey insights and journey orchestration. So let's dive into the first one. Client journey management is well, specifically how to solve for retention in insurance, which is client journey management, is a 5-step process, which is discovering journeys, understanding the segments of clients within those journeys, the people that are in motion, reviewing the deep insights, designing a strategy. So in other words, now that we have seen the journeys, how do we fix them? I'm going to just dive into each one of those individually now. At the top, you'll see, and we're using that as a metaphor. At the top, you'll see that there is what we call a Sankey diagram, very similar to a visualization that we have actually within our solution, and intuitively understandable. I think it shows volumes of people moving from one point to another. They're moving from touch point to touch point as they are trying to achieve their goals. In this case, it happens to be a claim within the motor space, and some of them are hitting obstacles, some of them are getting stuck, and it's obviously a data-driven visualization, but this is where we discover real journeys. It's different to the customer journey maps that you'll be familiar with. We all have customer journey maps up on a wall somewhere, which are valuable, but they are conceptual at best, and I'm sure that we'll all agree on that. They don't really show that a customer had to call a call center 3 times, or a customer got stuck because they got confused. So this is where we discover real client paths, where people are leaving the business, where they're hitting obstacles, and that type of thing. Dropped in just a couple of shots from our actual solution to show the Sankey diagram in in its context over there, as well as some of the analytics that we use in order to discern the real customer journeys. Now, what we want to do is we want to understand the segments. So we have a segment of customers that may be following a very particular path. Let's say they are high value, high risk customers, for the sake of an example, and we isolate this group of people to understand their characteristics, their experiences. But what's important here is that where we have gaps in our understanding in their particular behavior or what it is that they're doing, we also have the ability to reach out. So we can fill those gaps in our own understanding by reaching out with something like a survey or some kind of an engagement to understand what is it that happened at that point, how do they feel, what is their sentiment. And now what we're doing is we're actually collecting their emotional context and providing an emotional layer to what we see as real customer journeys. All right, that was step 2. Step 3 is we look at the insights. So now what we've got is we've got real customer journeys, and we're able to overlay the sentiment and what we know about how the customers are feeling at any point in time. And this helps us to better understand our clients while they're either achieving their goals or not achieving their goals. Here you see we've isolated a few segments within the solution, and we are following them through, and we are able to really just reach out and find out what is the context behind what they have experienced in some of the analytics. And I mean, why is this important? Not because we just want the information or we got nothing better to do, but because we want to fix these journeys ultimately. And this takes us very nicely and neatly into step 4, which is now we want to orchestrate these client journeys. We can see where they have gone wrong. We have seen where the obstacles and the drop-off points are, and now we know how they feel and what their biggest issues are. They may be hitting a certain point and saying, I don't have the information I need, or I'm frustrated about the car hire office because of ABC. These are things that we can now address and start to predict. So we've got our profile of at-risk clients as an example, and now through a process of contextual nudges and feedback collection and service recovery and that type of thing, we're actually able to anticipate some of these things and reach out in real time as they reach these points. That's just a quick view of our graphical user interface where we're able to design, create, and basically configure a lot of the communications that customers would reach. And these are obviously very contextual and personalized communications. We'll get into that in a second. And now we want to fine-tune the whole process. So we review and optimize. We look at the impact of the strategies, what was successful, what wasn't successful. Did we actually get the behavior change that we were hoping for in our clients as they move through this? We measure the ROI and we repeat after we have fine-tuned. And this is the essential process of learning and almost organic learning that we need to go through in order to better improve our customers' journeys and retain them as much as possible. Clive, anything you want to jump in on at this point, or shall I press forth?
Yeah, I think this point that you're on now is critical, because we want to almost bring them into cases to understand the trend patterns of customers that have been failed. What are majority of the customers that have been failed? Where in the process? Is it the car hire? Is it at the towing? Is it at the registration? Is it at the panel beater? Is it at the rework of the panel beater? Who's getting stuck, unstuck? Where is it happening? And that's what we want to know. And if we can know that early, we'd know the action to be taken. And majority of the time when we take action at a supplier, maybe getting rid of the supplier, and maybe that's not the right action, because maybe we're supposed to develop that supplier, because we do RFQs and we get a cheaper supplier, and then we want the best performance from the cheaper supplier. It just doesn't work. So this is very important.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thanks, Clive. So you would have noticed through these 5 steps that there's quite a lot of activity going on at any point in time. So let's talk about let's talk about journey orchestration now. So now we're diving into one of the categories of customer journey management, and we're looking specifically at the orchestration scenario. So let's look at our metaphor once again. We have our customer journey there at the top, the claim motor. We're going to introduce Charlotte to you at this point. That is Charlotte. She is a high value, high risk customer in this particular case. She fits into a particular profile, so she's not, there's not just one of her, there are a couple of her. And her experience is one of the motor claim in this scenario, which includes interactions with numerous suppliers, which would include car hire, panel beaters, that type of thing. And she is of a particular profile of customer that tends to give us the following kind of feedback. We hear things about poor communication, we hear about poor service, we hear about poor workmanship. And this is a high value, high risk client. So we obviously want to do everything possible to try and keep, well, all clients, but especially this kind of client. Here is a very simplified claim scenario, which I think, Mike, Clive, you're very well positioned to talk us through it.
Yeah, somebody once told me I'm a storyteller, so let me tell you a little story. Charlotte is a high-profile client. They had an accident on her way to work. Then she registered a claim. She had to call several times for an update. She was eventually able to select an available panel beater. Charlotte rearranged the meetings. She took leave. She asked the boss for leave, and took a car to the panel beater. She took an Uber to the car hire branch to collect a car hire, which was dirty to say the least, not clean. Charlotte waited for 10 days for an update. She eventually received a call on a Friday morning informing her that the car was ready for collection. Charlotte wasn't able to make the arrangement on that day, so she kept the car hire for the weekend. Charlotte then contacted a panel beater, only to find there was a scratch and a peculiar scraping sound when reversing. Charlotte bitterly complained about this experience. What's so amazing about this, Anthony, is there's a good couple areas, and I'm sure the short-term insurance people would identify with. Example, picking up your car from a car hire that's dirty because the previous person just left it and next person's picking it up. That's frustrating, and I had that a lot come up in my experience. Okay. You know, who cares about Charlotte that she needs to take leave from work to take a car for an assessment? Or that Charlotte needs to go to the panel beater, but from a panel beater, how does she get to the car hire? Who's managing that journey? There's so much of lessons in this just little story that we could speak the whole day about. But how do we fix it? That's the key.
That's the key. Okay, so what you're saying is this is a realistic scenario. And I mean, just to stress, this is highly simplified. As you can see, it's only a four-step process, and normally your claims experience would be more than 4 steps. But let's have a look at some of the things that are going on in the background. So, as we know, Charlotte is part of a segment that gives us very particular feedback. She tells us about poor communication, poor service, poor workmanship. But something else that's going on in the background is that she has a very particular context, all right? And that context is bigger than just her contact details and what we think we know about her, but it is also things like the channels that she tends to touch our business through. Okay, so her choice of channels. It would be the things that she has told us previously in surveys, how she has responded to engagements. It would be her sentiment around different themes. So perhaps she has continuously told us about the music that she has to listen to while she's on hold, or things like that. And we've got a particular sentiment curve that follows this customer. So that is her personal context. And she obviously also fits within a particular profile, which is indicated by that blue circle over there being high value and high risk. Now, and just incidentally, this is not a conceptual thing. This is something that exists within our platform. Every customer has, we call it a single view of the customer. And all those elements that I've just mentioned now, all of the historic behavior and activity, it is all able to inform communication and that the customer receives from the insurer, as well as how she can potentially be treated and the type of treatment that she will actually receive based on her context. So in this very particular case, because Charlotte happens to be a high value, high risk client, there may be a scenario where we reach out at some point and we ask her for some feedback. She gives us some feedback. She says that she wasn't particularly happy, 5 out of 10 or 5, yeah. not very happy, a case gets created, and because of her profile and her context, we're able to allow for a very particular treatment. In this case, she actually gets triaged, and her case gets sent through to a VIP team, where someone, in this case, someone called Jennifer, picks up her situation and says, you know what, I'm going to oversee this thing personally, and I'm going to resolve this for you. Another scenario may be, as we saw, she actually complained at the final step because of the new and surprising sound that she had on her car. And in the same way, she can be triaged, can be sent through to a particular person who says, you know what, I'm going to resolve this thing personally. Now, all we're saying is that we can allow for this type of treatment given that we know the customer's context, and we know operationally this might have implications, but we can allow for this given that the context is available to us and can inform the kind of treatment that she receives. Contextual interventions at moments of truth will boost client retention. So I just want to simplify this a little bit, because there's quite a lot of activity going on, as you saw. And there is Charlotte's journey there at the top. There's her claim experience. And at any point in time, we've got layers of activity that are taking place and being triggered by points in the journey, if you like. We've got feedback collection, as we've already spoken about, that can be triggered by certain points in the journey. We also have context-driven interventions. These would be things like nudges or providing information that is there to change behavior or help customers in a particular direction. And we also have case management. Cases which can be, and this is for the purposes of closed loop service recovery, they can be triggered by responses to surveys or responses to engagements or lack of response, if you like. And they can also equally, the outcomes of those cases can then trigger follow-up communications. So as you can see, what we're trying to do is we're trying to nudge or urge a customer in a particular direction so that the customer can achieve their goals and we can retain them. That's the important bit.
Yeah, that case management, Anthony, is key from a continuous improvement culture, where previously when you had the poll, people said it's people and processes. It's the what 50% I think came from there. And how are you going to fix that up? That case management will help you.
Yeah, exactly.
The people and the processes are falling.
And specifically case management that is in a closed loop kind of an environment where there are SLAs in place and there is responsibility and there's visibility of what's going on in real time. Yeah, thanks for that, Clive.
Yeah.
So we have dealt with, sorry, Clive, did you want to say something else? You good?
Yeah, I just want to say that the case management is going to come with data. And a lot of us sometimes have an intention of improving our process or customer experience, but we fail at the point of data. We don't have the data and we can't do it. And this helps us with collection of that data, which is beautiful.
Perfect, thanks. We have looked at sections 1 and 2, which have been customer journey management. We have looked at the orchestration aspect, and now we're going to talk a little bit about visibility and the importance of visibility in the battle for customer loyalty. And this, when we say visibility, we mean visibility within the insurer in order to see what is going on within their business. All right. So let's, I think, start by introducing the cost. Clive, why don't you talk us through the role players?
Okay, so the role players or the different journeys for a customer. All the customer wants, fix my problem efficiently with caring, and raise a flag, and allow me at least to raise a flag easily. And that's what a customer wants. What is a broken one from this journey? I want my customers to be happy, and I want them to be successful, because when they're successful, I'm successful. Keep me in the loop. What does a supplier? I want to get the job done quickly. Customers are important because they affect my rating. The more customers are happy, the more job I get from the insurer. What does a claim manager, the ops manager, want from this? He wants to close the ticket or satisfy the customers, because when the customers are satisfied, he's not being called into the big boss's office. What the insurance exec wants from this. I'm interested in the numbers, guy, the churn, the retention, the loss ratio. Keep me satisfied. Make sure it's happening for me. And these are probably the most critical people in the customer journey.
That's great. Thanks, Clive. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to talk about the type of visibility that we believe is important within the insurer, within the insurer's business, in order to make sure that we're able to basically drive for retention and solve for retention through the customer journeys. And I have, in terms of the graphic that's at the top of the slide there, that is really just to remind us that there are customer journeys going on in real time all the time. Through the various experiences as customers are trying to reach their goals. And there are those 3 layers of activity that are going on all the time, which is the feedback collection, the context-driven interventions, and the service recovery. And the outcome of those are feeding all the analytics and allowing for the visibility at any point in time. So let's just look at an ops view specifically within claims. Feedback per step of the claims process. These are just hints to, it's not meant to look like analytics or a report, but it's really just a hint of the kind of visibility that is important. So here we believe that in order to find the hotspots in the business, you might want some detail. You might actually want one detail per step of the process, and that would be within the claims process. It would be at registration, at assessment, at approval, that type of thing. I can see how many cases I've got, and I can see how many of those cases are negative. So I may want to, for instance, and if you can just follow the color thread there, you'll see that the red is negative and so on. I might want to figuratively double click on that assessment red block and see, okay, so what's actually going on in there? I can see that within assessment, I have got a certain number of cases that have been created. And that is because I have customers out there who have not been happy with the assessment experience. They have given me that feedback, and that has created a case in real time that I can dive into the detail of. I can see cases that were created today for assessments that happened today, and I can see exactly the points in the customer journey where I've got hotspots.
So what this does, Anthony, remember,
yes.
As I said earlier on, service industries normally doesn't have the luxury of performing the service in advance because we have to do it in real time. Insurers have to do it in real time. And when we can see something like this, somebody's already having a bad service, immediately the claims manager can take action. Now, not wait for the whole experience to explode and go to Twitter and go to the media. And you explained it very well once. I think you said it was a chicken sandwich. You want to tell us about that?
Well, I have to explain that now. So we use the chicken sandwich example as the metaphor for those big things that catch us by surprise. So in our particular case, there may have been a scenario where an airline served bad chicken sandwiches, which made 200 people sick at one point in time, and they all took to Twitter. And that was the first time that anyone within the business actually got to find out about it. In fact, there happened to be an influencer on the site, on the plane, and it ended up being a Twitter storm. And so we use that as the metaphor for the thing that went wrong large scale, and we found out about it too late.
Yeah, and that's what happens. The leaders get to know about it the last, at the end, when it's in the public domain. And if there's a better way to get to know about it close to real time as possible, please, very close, so we can take action, it'll make our lives so much better.
That's it. Let's look at another view. We believe you guys need a view of what's going on with your suppliers as well. So feedback per supplier category. Which supplier categories and suppliers are leading to hotspots in the business? And obviously, when I'm referring to hotspots, I'm referring to our top cancellation reasons. Let's look per supplier category. So we've got our panel beaters, we've got our car hire, we would also have our plumbers, etc., etc. And we'd be able to see that we're actually receiving a certain amount of negative feedback for a particular category of suppliers. In this case, let's have a look and see what's going on within panel beaters. So within panel beaters, I would see that I have, well, 2 panel beaters that rise to the top of the bottom of the pile, whichever way you look at it, Mr. Dent and Dent King, and I can see that there are particular themes that are coming out here. I can see that there are issues to do with communication, with timing, with friendliness. We may have aggregated and given them an aggregate score, which we may actually use to determine how much work they get in future. But there are a certain number of cases that are coming through from a particular sample size, and it's the kind of view that we'd really want to get into, because as we discussed earlier, these guys are basically our brand representatives, whether we want to admit that or not. And the kind of work that they are doing is a reflection on us. I think I have another suggestion of a supplier view here as well. So show me the hotspots that are below the surface. So what you really need is you need some kind of a platform that is not going to rely on you just to dig for your insights, but is actually going to take your insights and will take important information based on algorithms and AI and bubble those to the surface. So you might have a solution that says, well, panel beaters needing attention are actually the following. Maybe you should have a look at these guys. Or towers needing attention are the following, because we have picked a trend has been determined, and we can see through the intelligence and through the algorithms that this is what's coming to the surface. Is this the kind of thing that, in your experience, Clive, would be useful?
I think it'll be very useful, because there I'll be able to identify panel beaters that I may not want to use any longer, or may not want to give business to. You know, one of the things is panel beaters. We sometimes ask clients to go to a panel beater that's like 20, 30 kilometers away from his home or his workplace. And with the AI and helping us with some robotics, maybe we'll be able to know, oh, this panel beater actually is not ideal, or this panel beater actually doesn't do BMWs, or this panel beater only does Mercedes, or etc., etc. And by this, the intelligence would be able to help us to get so much more smarter and help us with our relationship with our customers.
That's it. That's great. Thanks. I'm going to move us along. I'm aware of the time, and I'm wanting to give this the time that it needs. We would want visibility around our broker network, wouldn't we? I know we have a number of brokers potentially on the webinar, but the insurer would want to be able to answer the question, you know, which brokers are actually leading to hotspots, and at which experiences. There may be poor feedback that is available to us around things that are happening. We would probably want to start with a view of the journey. So the view of the journey would be all the experiences within the journey. It would be onboarding into claim, into admin. But I can see that I've got a particular problem at claim. The number's quite low. It's showing up as a color that I don't want to see. So if I dive into that, I would get a regional view. I might see that actually we've got some brokers causing trouble within Gauteng, as an example. I might want to get a little bit more information on that and see what's going on within Gauteng. And I can see that we have broker businesses or brokers themselves, and they are leading to particular hotspots. And I'm getting the following kind of feedback back from them. So when it comes to a particular broker, in this case broker B, who, to be fair, doesn't have a lot going wrong there. Broker B has some emerging trends of poor communication, low effort, amber on the friendliness, and I can dive into any one of those cases to see what customers are saying. But this is the kind of visibility that would ultimately be important. Let's look at the. Sorry, Clive, do you want to say something about that before we move on?
Yeah, I think the brokers, sometimes as insurance organizations, we sort of leave out the brokers of what they want to see and what they want to see in advance, because we could even use this at the time of renewal to say to them, when we picked up and identified this problem with this panel beater or with this supplier, and this is what we've done because we've listened to you. And it sort of bridges the gap between the broker and the insurer, lets them come closer together as well. Yeah. So there's so much value here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because this is not meant to be a stick. This is meant to be something that we help each other to improve each other's businesses, right?
Absolutely.
By providing the analytics and by providing the insight. Let's look at our
brokers. I think the brokers will appreciate the insurer actually listening and doing something about it, even if you can't fix all of the problems. But they will appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's lastly look at the exec view. So we know what the exec is interested in. The exec is interested in show me my high-level metrics and show me how they are related to the customer journeys and what's going on within the business. So high-level metrics would be there may be NPS, customer satisfaction, churn. There would be retention, churn ratios, retention numbers. These are all important to our execs. But we would also want a journey view. So give me a view of the business which shows me how things are going at onboarding, how they're going at claims, how they're going at admin. Like Clive mentioned earlier on, we often fall into the trap of this being a siloed environment where there's a bit of a handover at each point, more like throwing the customer over the wall a little bit, and information potentially gets lost. So the exec has an interest in understanding the end-to-end customer journey. They'd want to see where the hotspots are and what the trends are at those particular points. But they may want to dive into a particular area of the customer journey as well. They might want to dive into claims, as an example. Let's go and have a look at a supplier view, and you'll see some of the other analytics that we hinted at previously start bubbling up here. So within claims, show me a supplier view. Show me how the panel beaters are doing. Show me how the car hire crowd are doing, and the assessors. This is probably the point at which the exec gets on the phone and calls someone into her office. But she might actually want to dive even deeper and say, I want to actually have a look at these individual cases. I want to see these themes come up, like I can see communication, I can see timing, I can see effort. These are obviously problems. So so show me these things. And this is what we're talking about. Is we're talking about the ability to have a very high level business-wide, customer journey-wide view, but with the ability to dive as deep as you want to dive.
I can also see results and action talking to each other. So even at Exco or Manco meetings, we could be talking to what action have you done to support this red at the panel beater, or this red at Mr. Dent, Mr. King, or Dent King. So,
yep.
So we could be talking a result, but we could also be talking to some action. What are your actions pointing? How is it pointing towards a result? And all on facts and data. And this could take away any ambiguity.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Clive. That's great. So I'm just going to remind everyone of because there was obviously a lot in the previous slides, but this is really just a reminder that a lot of what we have seen is actually being, and I'm sorry, my 4-year-old's just walked in. A lot of this is actually being, here we go. I warned everyone. This is all being fed by the levels of the layers of activity which are going on, which are feedback collection, context-driven interventions, and case management, which are really all feeding the solution and feeding the analytics which we have available to us. So I am going to bring us home. All right. Just very briefly, I want to mention what we call the incuba difference. Reduced dev dependency. So incuba difference in 5 parts. Very light integration, ensuring speed of results. So we are fortunately able to integrate into almost anything that you are using within your business through an integration layer, an integration layer. Speed to insight. So this is rapid insight into what's happening within your business. We can really switch this on very quickly. Intervention clarity, where and when to intervene for best results and to manage risks. Rapid iteration, swift testing of intervention effectiveness, and tangible ROI, tangible links between interventions and conversion. I see that 1 or 2 of you have posted some questions. we're going to be addressing those offline, if you don't mind, just in the interest of time, because I see we are almost there. So we do see your questions, and we are not ignoring you. So where is the entry point in terms of customer journey management? Just a reminder, this is the process. And I'd like to mention at this point that although we've looked at this holistically, we've looked at client journey management as a whole, and then we've looked at the parts. Entry points can be almost any one of these parts. So you may decide that as a business, the most important part initially would actually be journey discovery. What are our real client journeys? or you may actually decide that the insights or the orchestration are more important. So the point that we want to make here is that although it is a 5-step process, we would really love to engage with you if you feel that there's a particular entry point that is more valuable or more meaningful than anything else, and we can find the right entry point for you based on what your objectives are within the business. How would we do that? Well, I'd just like to mention the, and we're going to be basically wrapping up with this, the Incuba Journey Accelerator, where we're going to help you to accelerate your digital agenda. It's a 3-step process. The first step is, sorry, I'm just having to move these things around so that I can read the screen. Schedule your 2-hour interactive virtual workshop with us. What's going to happen within that workshop is, what we'll end up doing is we will map your customer journey. We will define customer profiles, identify nudge opportunities, so where we can actually intervene, identify data requirements, and quantify the ROI, importantly. What you'll actually get out of this is an accelerator pack to start your journey trial, which is your high-level journey design, documented step 2, everything mentioned in step 2 documented, as well as the ROI modeler. Okay, so how do you do this? Well, the good news is, in a short while, all of you will be receiving an email from us which will have the webinar material. It's going to have the slide deck that you have just sat through, and thank you for sitting through that. We really appreciate your time today. It's going to have the slide deck, it's going to have the video recording, and it's also going to have an opportunity for you to basically put your hand up and say, I am interested in either booking my Journey Accelerator workshop right now, or I want more information on this, please. So you are going to see that. Please keep an eye on your inboxes, and it's going to come through relatively soon. Clive, in closing, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much to the audience for listening to us, and I enjoyed the session, and thank you for hosting us, Anthony.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
This has been a load of fun, and we thank you once again for the fantastic attendance and for joining us today. And you will hear from us shortly, but don't let that stop you from reaching out to us if you want to for any further information. Thank you all, and have a fabulous day further. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.